LeaderShiftercast.
Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Well, I hope all is well with you today. This is our first Wednesday episode in 2023, and I hope you are sticking to your New Year's resolutions, whatever they were. This is another special Wednesday morning episode brought to you by our sponsor, Jeremy Clevenger Fitness, who we featured on episode 145. If you've listened to the show for a while, you know that Jeremy helped me get in the best shape of my life in 2022. And if you're planning on working on your health and fitness goals in 2023, I encourage you to put Jeremy in your corner to help you as well. There are links in the show notes to find all of his services. I have another great show lined up for you today, but before we get started, I just want to remind you to check out the leadership books I've written on either Amazon or my website, johnsrennie.com. Now, this year, I'm offering a new way to purchase all of my books for a discount. I've bundled the books into what I call the Qualified Watchstander series, and you'll get all three books for 15% off the individual prices. This offer is only available on my website, so check it out if you are looking to step up your leadership game in 2023. Also, as a reminder, Deep Leadership is ranked in the top 2% most popular shows out of 3 million podcasts globally, and is now ranked in the top 100 management podcasts in the U.S. thanks to all of your support. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening in every week and sharing these episodes with your friends. You have helped this podcast grow into a top-performing show, so thank you very much. Well, that is it. Today we're going to be talking about strategy and culture, and my guest is Shani Magosky. Shani has a passion for leaders, strategy, and culture. She has seen the positive organizational effects when the leader has the strategy and culture aligned. Now, unfortunately, these situations are rare, and she's on a mission to fix it. It was fun to talk to someone who shares my same passion to build a world with better bosses and cultures, and I know you're going to love this episode. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20 plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Shani Magosky. Shani is the founder of the LeaderShift Project. She is a highly sought-after leadership consultant, executive coach, and best-selling author. She hosts the LeaderShifter Show podcast, which I was honored to be on, and her vision is to see a world filled with better leaders and companies filled with better cultures. And I am excited to have her on the show to talk about the leader's role in unifying the business strategy and culture. So, Shani, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here, and glad we're able to reciprocate. I loved having you on my show. I don't know if you read my show notes, but I said you were one of the most fascinating guests I've ever had because I am so impressed with you having been on a nuclear submarine. It's like one of those things that I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed being on your show, and you had some great questions. You're a great interviewer, and I really got a lot out of it. And yeah, I think it's kind of strange to meet somebody who's been, spent part of their life under the ocean. So it's it's a small community of people that do it, and usually there's something wrong with them. So.
Well, I think there's something right with you, and I'll say it 10,000 times. I really appreciate your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was fun. It was absolutely an honor. So, but let's talk about you. I mean, that's why you're on my show. So let's talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up getting into coaching, consulting, writing, speaking, and doing what you do.
Yep. Okay. Well, I wish there was a really simple answer, and I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version. After I graduated from college at the University of Miami, I moved to New York and worked on Wall Street, even though I had a degree in marketing and sociology. And I worked at Goldman Sachs, which was a great experience. And one of the things I appreciated most, especially about the firm back then, was just amazing culture, preeminent culture on not just on Wall Street, but among any big visible company. They really cared about their people. They invested in people. They were really, to my knowledge, the first big bank to invest in leadership development through something called Pine Street. And I had a very personal experience with the beneficence of their culture when I was, in my third year there. So I'm like 25, 26 years old. And my then fiance, who was a doctor, a resident at Mount Sinai Hospital on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, was out of blue diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And wow. Yeah, exactly. No words. He was 27, amazing guy. And he died 7 months later in our apartment, the whole nine. And have me on a show, with some beers, and I can tell people the full story. Anyway, while I was caring for him, I was his primary caregiver while he was sick. He lived with me, and that's what we wanted. My boss and my boss's boss and all my colleagues were very supportive. They were like, come to the office if you want to. Don't come to the office if you feel like you want to be with Alan. We're not going to dock your paycheck and count vacation days. We're not going to dock your bonus. Like, so supportive, I couldn't believe it. They all showed up at the funeral. It was just really, it touched my heart forever, and it stuck with me. It continued to stick with me. So fast forward, I worked at Goldman for about 11 years, and then I was a leader in a couple of other businesses. And after a while of roles in different industries, different functional areas, et cetera, I decided I wanted to hang my own shingle as a leadership consultant. And at the same time, I decided, as part of, actually not as part of, the first step in changing culture is changing the mindset of leaders. Mm-hmm. And that really oftentimes needs to be done one-on-one. So I thought, I need to become an executive coach too. So as a parallel process of starting my business, I went and got my coaching certification. And since that time, I've gotten, 17 other certifications. So I've got, the whole alphabet of initials after my name, but all in service of being able to serve my clients in the best way possible, and with a lot of arrows in my quiver. And in terms of the book, you've written 3 books yourself. You want to share your knowledge because you feel like you can help people. It's not about publishing a book. It's about getting thought leadership and different ideas out to the world.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think you just touched on something that's really important. It's like, if you're going to want to change the culture of a business, you have to change the mindset of the leader. And that's really, really powerful. And it's one of the things that I saw as a problem. I did 22 years in corporate America, working in various roles. And one of the things I saw is there was definitely people that had a fixed mindset. They weren't going to change. That this is the way they've been doing business their entire career. And I have all the answers. I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to change, and I'm not willing to learn and to do things that are outside my comfort zone. They were strict, by the book, fixed mindset, and they were the ones that weren't as successful as some of us other leaders who were humble, trying to learn, trying to figure, what's the best way to engage the people to get the maximum results, and really being curious and humble and authentic. And we were the ones getting the better results. And it was interesting because it was all a mindset issue of the leader.
Yeah, exactly. And a willingness to open that mind and adopt a different mindset, not just in a check the box kind of way, but in a way that translates to different thoughts and different behaviors. And, that's really, a lot of that's accomplished through executive coaching, because as a coach, we're there to challenge leaders, not in a confrontational way, but as a way, so we're holding mirrors up to them, and we're asking them provocative questions to get them to really think about how they behave and what the impact is and what the consequences are, good and bad, of course, because we want people to keep doing the things that they're already doing right. And, people don't know what they don't know. I think, frankly, in our generation, part of the reason we still see so many fixed mindset leaders is we had really crappy role models. Like,
that's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the baby boomers were very command and control, pillar of knowledge. Even if they didn't know everything, they had to pretend they knew everything. The ego problem was rampant. And so that really set a bad precedent for our generation because, people started to, as they ascended into leadership, model what they saw as the leaders that they grew up with. And I'm part of, as are you, breaking those bad habits because times have changed. Like the economy has changed from a manufacturing economy to a service economy since the baby boomers were starting out of business. And the generations have obviously massively changed in the workplace, and what people want today is vastly different than what our predecessors wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say that that many managers today have never worked for a good leader, and it shows.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it shows for sure. So, tell us a little bit about what the LeaderShift Project is. What do you do, and what makes your company so special?
Sure. Well, when I was thinking about the company, it's like, well, it has to have leadership in it because that's what I'm passionate about. That's who I'm helping, right? That's my target market. And so it's part of the branding. I'm like, but leadership is so boring. And back to the whole, I mean, not boring, but it's everyone says leadership. And one of my characteristics is I always like to stand out from the crowd, be unique. I tend to be pretty provocative, and that might not be some people's cup of tea, and that's totally fine with me. But it goes back to mindset, that the best leaders are able to shift. And yes, shift strategy, shift geographic focus, shift their team, shift their product mix. Yes, all the business variables need to shift over time to keep up with competition and technology. And the most important thing that needs to shift is mindset, perspective, thought, emotions, right? Because it all starts internally, and the leaders are modeling the behavior for other people. And if they're not modeling the behaviors that honor the values, and by the way, the values have to be real, not just posters on a wall, then no one's going to follow suit. So I was like, okay, play on the word leadership, LeaderShift, because all great leaders need to know how to shift. And pretty much everything I do falls under that larger umbrella, from the executive coaching to consulting on culture change and other general change management, and team coaching, lots of different things that fall in that wheelhouse.
When clients come to you, what are they typically trying to do? Is it to solve a problem, to change a culture, to fix things that are broken, or are they thinking, look, we're pretty good right now, but we want to be even better? When do they come to you typically?
Well, it's a funny question, and I may have a funny answer. You be the judge of that. So a lot of clients come to me with things like, employees are disengaged. Can you come do a keynote and fix that?
Oh,
right.
Right, exactly. It's the employees.
Right. Or we have a problem in our culture. Can you do a workshop for leaders? Well, when you say workshop, what do you mean? Oh, like a half day, 2 to 4 hour thing. It's like, no, that isn't going to solve anything, right? If you want to train for a marathon, is running for 2 hours once going to help you successfully run a marathon? It blows my mind how little leaders and even people in leadership development, L&D, or learning and development, think it's simple. It's not simple. It's very complex. There's lots of layers of the onion to peel back, and behavior change takes sort of somebody's emotional mind to be blown so that they feel motivated to make some changes. And even if they feel motivated, it takes an ungodly amount of repetition before those behavior changes become habitual. So, I do have a couple of clients now who really get it.
Yeah.
And one client, for example, who started with a 1-year engagement at the most senior leadership level, realizing that that is the tip of the iceberg. It's going to be a multiple year process. We're starting at the top. We're going to start cascading it down to next levels of people leadership. And they get that you can't move a battleship, or a submarine, by going.
Right. It takes a long time to turn a battleship, for sure. You touched on something that and it's really been the emphasis, the reason why I write and why I do this podcast is you say, Gallup shows us that about 70% of employees are disengaged at work today. And I kind of go back to leadership being the issue, but just in your view, what are some reasons why there's so much disengagement in the workforce? Even as we went through all this COVID stuff, we work remote, we were trying to do all sorts of things, but still the level of disengagement is kind of remained the same. It didn't really change over COVID. It's typically been about 70% year over year. And I don't know, just your thoughts on why it exists and what the leader's role is in that.
Right. Well, leaders set the tone. And, I always say to leaders, if you don't have the team that you want, or a team that you feel comfortable delegating to, team that you can fully trust, that's your fault. Okay. And so similarly, if you have a disengaged workforce, that's also your fault.
Yes.
And, not that they can go spend time with every single person in the organization, but the things that they do and say, and frankly, the things they don't do and don't say, make a huge impact. People aren't stupid. They pick up on this shit. They see when there's no integrity, or alignment between words and actions. They see that they're deprioritized to, for corporate jets instead of career development training. They see all this stuff. And so it's no wonder that people are disillusioned, and they don't feel that they're given the tools to succeed, both technologically and training, right? If in this day and age, if companies aren't on a treadmill of upskilling, forget about it, because things change so rapidly. And so if people don't feel that the shut up for success, that's really frustrating. If we've got micromanagers who won't let people learn and fail forward and continue to develop themselves. People want that autonomy to do things themselves, to develop a sense of pride. And we need to let employees fail. We don't want nuclear subs to fail, right? There's a different category of failure, but a lot of things in corporate America are not going to be the end of the world. Like the ice caps aren't going to finish melting because, someone screwed up an order.
Yeah. No,
Right?
actually, you touch on something that's really important, and I write about it in my books. One of the things the Navy did for us is they gave us opportunities for controlled failure. So we stood these junior officer of the watch watches, and so we had a senior watchstander over us, right? And they would throw every casualty drill at us imaginable. They gave us things that we'd never seen before, and we inevitably screwed up. And we would stop the drill and we would do a debrief. And the point is that when you fail, it's an emotional response, and you don't want to fail again. So you're more open and willing to learn and figure out, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I do differently? And so being in a situation where you're allowed to fail in a controlled manner is a great and powerful way to learn. That's how I became a great submarine officer, is having those opportunities to fail. And I always did that in my businesses where I had, up and coming potential leaders. I give them projects and I put them like sort of under my wing and let them run the project a little bit, but give them the opportunity to screw up so they get those chances to make mistakes and have that, deep emotional learning. And what I notice is that we don't like to do that in corporate. We don't like failure. We don't want to spend the time allowing people to learn on their own. We want everything to be safe. We give the tough assignments to our most senior employees, and we take our most junior employees and we give them grunt work until you have 10 years of experience. Then we'll maybe give you a project of which you probably have the skills to do it right now. And that was frustrating to me.
Furthermore, managers tend to delegate to the people whom they trust the most at the expense of the people who haven't had a chance to prove themselves, which further widens the gap between those they trust and those they don't, because the other people aren't even given the opportunity to learn and prove themselves and all this. I mean, there are myriad problems that cause the disengagement. Another thing we see is employees that don't feel the least bit of connection to the mission, the vision, the values of the company. Yeah. Right. They need a job, but they don't even like what the company does or what it represents. Well, that's not engaging.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. And those are the guys that are just clocking, coming in, clocking in, clocking out, and just keeping their head down and trying to keep their jobs so they can feed their family. They don't care, and because we haven't engaged with them as to why and what they do and why it's so important. And so they don't see their role as critical to the mission. And I saw that a lot, especially in big companies where nobody knew what the mission was, nobody knew what the objectives were, and nobody knew how their role impacted that.
Right. And then companies wonder why their turnover rate is so high.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Leadership skills are like any other skills. You need to practice them to get better at them. Best-selling leadership author John S. Rennie knows this. That's why he's written a new book called You Have the Watch. It's a guided journal for leaders designed to take you through an entire year of leadership training. By the end of the year, you will master 50 of the most important leadership skills. If you want to have a greater impact on the results and people in your organization, go to youhavethewatch.com and pick up your copy today.
This podcast is brought to you by Jeremy Clevenger Fitness. As a high-performing leader, you know that leadership isn't about telling people what to do, it's about leading by example. And for most people, the one area they are lacking when it comes to leading by example is their health and fitness. By improving your health and fitness, every other area of your life improves. But how do you get and stay fit as a busy leader? Well, you do what you've always done. You hire the best person for the job. Now, don't struggle on your own. Put Jeremy Clevenger on your team. Jeremy will work with you to help take your physique, mindset, nutritional habits, and more to the next level with his step-by-step, all-inclusive coaching program. Now, I've worked with Jeremy for the past year, and I'm in the best shape of my life. So if you want to step up your game, reach out to Jeremy at jeremyclevengerfitness.com to find out more and get your initial consultation scheduled with him today. This episode is brought to you by the Fraternity of Excellence. The Fraternity of Excellence is an online and real-world community for men who are looking to improve in all areas of their lives. The men of FOE are working together to become better husbands, fathers, and leaders at work and in their communities. They live by a simple philosophy: as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now, I've been a member for more than 3 years, and for me, I finally found a brotherhood of men that I was missing from my time in the military. Now, I love being around guys who are dedicated to becoming a better version of themselves. So if you're interested in becoming a man of excellence as well, go to fraternityofexcellence.com, or you can reach out directly to me to learn more. Well, let's talk a little bit about this. How is strategy and culture connected? So you've got strategy on one hand, you got culture on the other. How are they connected, and how is the leader involved in that?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because it's time for me to get up on my soapbox.
Good.
Okay. Strategy is always done at the top level, right? The strategy is set by the C-suite and the board of directors, blah, blah. And usually culture is delegated / relegated to somewhere else in the organization. Maybe it's under HR. Usually it's under HR. And, it's one of a zillion things that HR is trying to do. And so it doesn't necessarily happen as urgently and as powerfully as it needs to be. And they're not necessarily given the resources. It's more just like a window dressing to say, well, we're focused on culture. And that's a huge mistake. Culture has to be on the same level as strategy because they work together. Strategy cannot be achieved unless leaders have created an environment where employees are motivated, engaged enough to execute that strategy. So companies are always going to fail. I mean, there's enough challenges out there, even if companies did have an engaged workforce, right? I mean, that's why the military uses DARPA, right? And the business community has adopted VUCA as a way to describe all the crazy stuff going on in the business climate right now, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Like that's all happening no matter whether your company's, amazing at culture or not amazing at culture. So layer onto that, having a disengaged workforce, well, they're never going to execute on their strategy. So for me, when you're setting strategy, simultaneously, you need to be thinking about, okay, what is the culture that needs to be maintained in order for these things to happen? And not just what are the words of the culture, what are the cultural behaviors that are observable so that we know whether the culture is really real or not.
I love that you're saying this because I've gotten a chance to do this on a micro level with a small business, starting my own manufacturing business 7 years ago. We were able to say, this is what our vision is, this is what our strategy is, and this is the culture that's going to support that. So it's easier to do it when you have a small business and, I don't have 10,000 employees. So it's easier to do, but we said, for example, we were going to be a different kind of supplier. So we were going to do all the things that the big companies do that piss off the customers. We're going to do just the opposite, right? So, for example, when there's a problem and a customer calls us, we say, no problem. We'll send you a replacement right away. We don't question it. Whereas the bigger companies would say, well, what did you do wrong? How did you do? So they would challenge the customer every time. And so we say, no problem. We'll take it back. We'll give you a new one. No questions asked. Right. So, but to be able to say that we were going to operate in that mindset, right? I needed all the people who were going to answer the phones, anyone who's going to talk to customers, that you have to, a lot of them came from, they work with me in corporate America, where that was the mindset, which was to say no first. Yeah. But we had to teach them to say, yes, it's okay. Yeah, we'll replace it. No problem. And so it took us to build a culture of we are going to support our customers no matter what. And because that's consistent with what we want to be as a supplier in our industry. So the two were connected. And it was important that I taught them, this is what your role is in that strategy.
Yes, I love that. That's a brilliant example. So you have a culture of customer comes first. But one of the behaviors that you expect from your people is to not question if the customer has a problem and to just send them a new one.
Right.
Right. That's a behavior that's observable and measurable. And you know what? Happy employee is going to make a happy customer.
Yeah. Well, and I could see in the beginning it was hard because they would come to me and say, oh, it's really his fault, the customer's fault. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Remember what we said we were going to do. It's consistent with our values is to replace it. And they're like, oh, but it's going to cost us. No, you don't understand. It's consistent with our behaviors. And so the leader has to make sure they reinforce that as well. Because if we don't reinforce that, reward and reinforce the behaviors we want to see in our team. If we don't do that, then the culture is just left to wander into whatever it ends up being, So it's an intentional act on the leader.
Absolutely. And what people who don't think 5 steps ahead don't realize, it's going to cost us money. Well, it won't, because this is going to be a repeat customer.
That's
right?
it.
They're going to have such a great experience with us that they're going to be a loyal customer for life, a raving fan who's going to tell their friends and family and neighbors.
That's it. So we save in marketing costs trying to find new customers by taking care of the ones we already have. It's a simple process. And that's why I keep explaining to my employees. They're like, oh, it's going to cost us. I don't care how much it costs us because we don't have to go find another customer. You don't understand. And I think as they've embraced that and understood that, and they see the loyalty of our customers now, they say, oh, I see what you're doing. I see that this works. It doesn't make sense maybe in the short term. In the long term, it does make sense.
Right. It is. And that made me think of something else, which is some leaders get really siloed, where again, you can't separate all the functions, right? Sales, marketing, operations, people leadership, customer retention, customer service, all of these things go together and support each other. And, so if marketing's not talking to operations or customer service, they're missing the opportunity that you're seizing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about in the beginning, and I think that's really important, is we can't outsource leadership to HR. So we can't say that, oh, I'm going to let HR deal with the culture. Oh, I'm going to let HR deal with the hiring, firing, development of people. This is your job as the leader. And if you're outsourcing that to HR and then you're wondering why people are leaving, then you just haven't taken ownership of that. That's something, it's funny because I tell people that leadership is about, it's about influencing people towards a goal. There's three things: influence, people, and a goal. That's it. Those are those three things. And so we make leadership more complicated, but then many leaders find themselves just doing emails and sitting in meetings, and they forget about the mission, they forget about the motivation and they forget about the people. And those are the three things that you got to be doing and thinking about. And those tie into the strategy and the culture. What is it you want to do as an organization? How do you want to motivate your team to get there? And how do you treat your people with respect so that they know that their voice is heard and they can do that? So these three things work in alignment, and yet we see many leaders, or I'll say managers, in conference rooms with the door shut, sitting on conference calls all day long and never engaging with their team. And then we wonder, why is there 70% disengagement in our country?
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to add on to that, which is, it's amazing at what senior levels you still see that disease of being a slave to email as opposed to actually doing something meaningful. And I am really blunt with my executive coaching clients, and not in a nasty way, in a, I'm sorry if nobody else has been this honest with you, but I care enough about your success to tell you the truth and hold a mirror up to your face so that you can really think about what you're doing. And I'll say, whoever got promoted because they were really speedy at answering emails.
Right.
Except maybe someone in customer service, right? But that, right. And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, no, why have you gotten promoted over the years? Well, because I handled a stretch assignment really well, or I came up with this new innovative product, or I cut, 25% of the cost out of manufacturing, right? Big things. I'm like, okay, so what does that tell you that you shouldn't be focused on?
Right. Exactly. Do the big things, lead your people, get those big things done. Yeah. It's interesting. So be a leader, not a doer. And we get comfortable in I'm just going to do my emails today with my door shut. And that's not leadership. That's email ship.
That's exactly. Get out there, visit with the people, see what's going on in your company, because people are not going to tell you, right? Because go see what's going on, and engage with people, talk to your employees, talk to your vendors, talk to your customers, get a real finger on the pulse as opposed to hanging out behind that closed door.
Yeah, absolutely. You had something in your website. I just was going to ask what it is. You have what you call it, a leadership culture MRI. What is that?
Yep. So there are a few different tools that I am certified in and use with clients to really help shine a light on what's wrong in the body of the organization. That's why I call it an MRI. And, another thing I am known for doing is trying to take jargon and turn it into something more relatable. And everybody knows what MRI is. So instead of saying, well, it's the Leadership Circle Profile Culture Survey, which is what it is, I call it a leadership MRI, so we can see what's really going on. And also, it's these tools have basis in science and research, and they are not just qualitative but quantitative. So they tend to satisfy those left brain people who want to see some numbers.
Right. Yeah. They want to see
to have some science behind it. So that's what the leadership MRI is about.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And then I have them for individual leaders and for teams and organizations. We can do it across any level.
Wow, that's good. And I like you said, I think you're right. Sometimes we need to speak the language of the person in charge, and sometimes that's numbers. And so sometimes we have to show a chart that says, here's what is ideal, here's where you're at, and here's what we can do to fix it, because that's the language that they speak. And so, like you said, some people need to see that analytical tool to show them where the problem is. They don't believe you by the, anecdotal evidence that you're providing. They want to see numbers. And so that's why these tools are great, these cultural tools, to be able to just sort of say, okay, well, here's ideal, here's what we can do to close that gap. And I think those are valuable, because you're speaking the language of the individual maybe that's in charge, that needs to see the numbers. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So this has been great. I mean, I think we touched on a lot of different things. I think one of the things that's really important, and I'll just stress, because you are a coach, and is that, leaders that are listening in here, and if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have a coach, if you don't have someone that you can talk to that is not within your organization, I really highly encourage you to find someone. Shani is a great example of someone that can come in and help and be that mirror, as you mentioned, to show you things that maybe you don't see yourself. And so if you don't have a third party, someone outside your organization you can talk to on a regular basis, I highly encourage you to find somebody. And I highly encourage you to check out Shani's work and the work that she's doing, because she could really help you as well. Shani, how can people find out more about your company? You have a book as well, and all the things that you offer, your podcast as well.
Absolutely. Website is LeaderShiftProject.com. All my social media is basically that. And my LinkedIn, I do under my name, Shani Magosky. And my email, if anyone wants to reach out directly, is Shani@LeaderShiftProject.com. My podcast, The LeaderShifter Show, is on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the places. And the book, The Better Boss Blueprint, is for sale on Amazon.
Yes.
And I will say, because I must have said the word mindset 15 times today, and I'll, if you'll allow me to end on that note again, for me, mindset is so important. Frankly, not just professionally, but personally, that I am almost ready to launch an app called Mindset Medicine. And so it's going to have a bunch of different mindsets from A to Z, starting with like anger and anxiety, going down to, I don't think there's a Z, but all the way through the alphabet. So here's a stuck mindset, and here's a growth or unstuck mindset that to aim for. The prescription is a few really powerful questions to get people to think. And then there are what I call hell yeah habits, which, because to me, like, I want people to say, hell yeah, I want to do these, that are germane to helping you shift that mindset. And that will be launching within the next couple of months.
Oh, that is so awesome. I think it's so necessary. I see, and I think I think a lot of it, just my observation looking at managers over the years in corporate I just see a lot of it's fear-based. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to look foolish. I don't want to, what if I don't have an answer to that question? I don't want to fail. I don't, and it's all fear-based. And a lot of why managers fail is fear-based. And it's the idea of, okay, it's all right to be an amateur. It's okay to fail and fall on your face when you try something new, but you're going to learn. You're going to learn something. You're going to learn a new skill set. I mean, I don't know if we talked about it when I was on your show, but I'm in my PhD program. I'm 55 years old taking a PhD. Guess what? I'm struggling. It's hard. I haven't been to school in 20 years, right? And so it's a struggle, but guess what? I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm becoming a better boss because of it. And I'm exposing myself to things I've never seen before. And so I'm willing to grow even at where I'm at in my life. I could say I'm a 30-year leader. What do I need to learn? Guess what? I open a book and I'm like, I get into this college program and I'm like, holy cow, there's a whole world of research out here on leadership I never even knew existed. So
Sure.
And so you can't say that you're 30 after 30 years, I'm an expert. I could say that, but the truth is there's more to learn,
Of course, it's, the more mature we get and the more we let go of our egos, the more we realize how little we actually know.
Right.
And another key to success is to be a lifelong learner.
Yes.
And, I think anyone who is smart knows to keep doing that. And it doesn't have to be a PhD. I have a book. This is one of my things I'm doing this year, The Daily Stoic. These filters make it hard to.
Yes. Yeah.
See it's not showing there.
I see a little bit here and there.
Anyway, so it's 365 days of meditation on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. So like with my coffee for the past 4 days, I am reading the half a page or a page blurb and I already started highlighting stuff. So learning can look like anything.
It's exposing yourself to things that you're not doing today and allowing like you said, lowering your ego and just allowing yourself to learn and embrace something completely different that you haven't been exposed to before. We do it as children, but we sort of, the older we get, we kind of close that down, right? And we can't do that, especially as quick as the world is moving. We've got to stay open to that. We have to keep an open mindset and be willing to learn things that we don't know.
For sure. Amen.
Amen. Well, we're going to put links in the show notes for all your resources. Shani, it has been a pleasure talking with you again, this time on my show. I really appreciate you coming on here and talking about these really important things that leaders need to be thinking about. So thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Absolutely. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, take care.
Miles, are you ready to record our promo for Season 2 of the Wanna Bet podcast?
David, have you ever seen a grown man naked?
Miles, we're not here to quote lines from Airplane. We're here to tell people that Season 2 starts August 18th.
But I like Airplane.
I know you do, but Wanna Bet is a sports betting podcast. Each week we bet $1,000 on the NFL teams and games that we love.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It is fun. And last year you picked over 60% of your games correctly.
How'd you do?
We're not talking about that. We are telling people that they can find us every Friday. So no more movie quotes.
Roger.
Electricast.
Are you passionate about saving the planet for future generations? Do you want to learn how to do it? If yes, then you need to tune in to the Nature Back podcast. It's a talk show covering the changing world around us, from renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, circular economy, to ESG and social innovation. Don't miss this opportunity to discover how you can join the movement and make a difference. Subscribe to the Nature Back podcast today on your favorite platform and get ready to be amazed.